to tell you about all the books I read in November. Hello and welcome to another bookish video for me, Johanna, me, my dog and books. There ain't no dogs, I appreciate. They're all downstairs sleeping because I'm trying to grab the last of the light to tell you about all the books I read in November. I'm not going to lie, friends, it's been a bit of a mixed month. In total, I've read 11 books, but I DNF'd 4. I will mention the DNFs, but don't take the fact that I DNF'd them as a reason for you not to pick them up, because perhaps it's my mood, perhaps it's the format I read it in, or perhaps it's just not for me, but it is for you. No further ado, I was going to do stats, and then I've decided I won't, because pretty much my stats, especially like my moods, they're always dark, intense, emotional. And I didn't know if any of the other stats were of much interest to anyone. Anyway, I'll not do it this month, but if you want me to bring them back, let me know in the comments. First up, I started November, which is often known as nonfiction November, and I've read 3 nonfictions this month. And the first one I read was Told You So by Maci Neeley. Now, if you are not a fan or watcher of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, then you will have no idea who this person is, or probably not be interested in their story. I actually find this really good. I struggle with memoirs, autobiographies on rating them, only because I'm not going to rate someone's actual life story, but when I do rate them, I'm rating them on how well written it is, how well the story is told. Obviously, some people use ghostwriters and things like that. It's totally fine, because if someone has an amazing story to tell, but maybe not naturally a writer, kudos. I would say it's not the most amazingly well-written book, but I still really enjoyed it. Maci has had such... Before she even gets to act like The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, of which she is one of the Mormon wives, and she's on Mum Talk, and if you've not watched the show, none of this will mean anything to you, but she's probably our most stable in her life at this point, being on the reality show. And most of what she tells us is about her life story of some of the tragic experiences she's had growing up, both in abusive relationships, and I don't want to give any spoilers, so I don't, and I don't really want to say too much, because if you are interested in watching or have watched parts of like The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives but don't know too much about this person, I would recommend going in and reading it. I listened to it on audio and she reads it. I think I got it, I can't remember if I maybe got it on, no, I don't think I got it on Audible. I think I might have got it on Liberal FM. But I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. So it was a decent start to the month. But then I jumped from that into another non-fiction, which was completely different, and that was the Fred West tapes by Howard Sounes. Now, there is a Netflix documentary about the Fred West tapes. Now, Fred West and his wife Fred and Rose West, are one of the UK's most notorious serial killers, and gosh, I can't even remember when this case and their trial and everything came to fruition. Easily, was it in the 90s or the 2000s? I can't honestly remember, but they were responsible for horrific acts and murdering and disposing of, a lot of the time in their backyard, if not in other places, young women, and some of them children. And some of the things that they were involved in and undertook in their relationship and their life, they were a married couple and were for a long period of time, were utterly grotesque. And so this is a pretty dark true crime story. I think most people in the UK, maybe outside, know about Fred and Rose West and that case. I would say this one is exposes more as you hear more from Fred West during his period of being interviewed and with the police and his demeanour and all of that. The documentary is amazing. I would say this is a very challenging read. because there's a lot of detail that goes into his crimes and his behaviours. He's just like, you think of bad serial killers, man, he is. And his wife. His wife is still alive, serving time in prison. He is no longer alive, but died in prison. But yeah, if you are interested in true crime, and even if you know a lot about the Fred and Rose West crimes and trials, I would still recommend reading this. It's really well documented and researched, and the documentary I think is on Netflix. I would also recommend watching too. So yeah, I started the month with pretty traumatic true stories, and then I jumped into Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. Now this is maybe my third or fourth Rachel Harrison. I really enjoyed this, but I would say, what was the one I read before it? Oh, my memory is shocking. It's such sharp teeth. I loved that. A really good feminist rage werewolfy with a total twist on it, right? I read that in October. So Black Sheep was the one I read this month, and I really enjoyed it. I would say maybe Such Sharp Teeth just edges it for me. This one is about cults though, which I do love reading about. So in this one we have a main character called Vesper, and she had a very unconventional upbringing, but she left home at 18, never to look back, because to be fair, she left a religious community, which was her family and a cult. So she knew that if she left, she could never return. That's until years later, an envelope turns up at her door. Now in this envelope is an invite to her cousin's wedding. What she isn't sure is if this is an olive branch, just a kind gesture, or something more sinister. So she decides to go, and that's where she'll meet up again with her mother, Constance, I think her name is, who is a bit of an ice queen, but also a former horror movie star. Now, her homecoming brings up some family secrets and stuff that I'm not going to go into because it'll be spoilers. But this does a really good job of, in Rachel Harrison's usual way, great female characters, but female rage, societal commentary on, in this instance, I would say religious cults and family bonds, and what it feels as a woman who was brought up really unconventionally and extracts herself from that world to then try and find her own place in the world when she's then pulled back, and what all that brings up. I really enjoyed it. It was probably, I would say, Such Sharp Teeth, as I said before, edged it for me, but I know some people have read this one and preferred this one. So I think, but overall, I just love Rachel Harrison's writing style. I love her characterisation, and I love her commentary about particular topics. In Cackle, it's about friendship, a sense of belonging, and owning your own power, a bit magic. In Such Sharp Teeth, it's about female rage and female expectations and a kind of twist on the werewolf trope. And this one's cults. So I think Play Nice, which I want to read next, might be about haunted houses. So yes, highly recommend. It was a nice change to pick up after some of the kind of true stories I was reading. Now the next one I read because I went to an online horror book club, and the book they had recommended was on Kindle Unlimited. So, and I hadn't heard of the author or the title, so I decided to give it a go, and it is When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. Now, I'd never heard of the book or the author, but I always love reading horror books that are just, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Stephen King and all that, right? But I love reading horror books that are not by, white men. And went in relatively unknowingly into this book. It was a very fascinating topic. So we follow the main character, Mira. Now, she fled her hometown years ago, and she is coming back to this hometown, this small town, and actually it's on a plantation. So she's been invited to an old friend's wedding on what used to be a plantation, which has now been reimagined as like kind of a visitor attraction and is also the venue for this wedding. Okay, so you can already see that there's inappropriate things are happening here. Now, she isn't sure whether to go back. There was Mira and the bride, can't remember her name, and another friend called Jessie. So Jessie's also black, Selena's white, and Mira is black. So this is Celine inviting two of her black friends. Now, Mira and Jessie had a bit of a... Back in the day, I think Jessie had slightly unrequited feelings for Mira. So that's one of the reasons she ends up going to the wedding, because she finds out he's going as well. And there's just like weird stuff when they turn up, right? So this visitor attraction, which used to be a plantation, awkward enough, right? But they've turned it into a visitor attraction where people are reenacting like the stuff slaves would be made to do. Like reenacting it, and people are paying to see this. But not only that, her white friend who's invited Jessie and Mira is proactively having her wedding. I mean, it's a very extravagant wedding. She's marrying a very wealthy man, yada yada. But like, this is unhinged in itself, and this is like the kind of less horrific part. There's a part where Mira and some others start to experience maybe some sights, ghosts or supernatural or something that is happening in the venue. And also I think Jessie also has been previously, years ago, when something happened to the old guy that lived on some of the land. He was found dead, and like, because Jessie is a young black man, was clearly getting accused of it, of course. Anyway, so there's that history as well. I found it gave me the vibes of a reformatory, but not at all as well written as that, I would say. I liked the premise. I liked the topics it was taking on and how uncomfortable it made you feel as a reader. I would say it felt like it was self-published and that maybe some editing could have happened in the book. But in saying that, because of the topic, the author, there's maybe some continuity things that people picked up when we were discussing it in the book, where you're like, oh, an editor would have caught that, or I don't know, it just felt like it wasn't, I wouldn't say the writing was fine. It was maybe more the editing, the execution of the book. Anyway, if you're interested in the premise, which was seems really good, I also say absolutely read more black authors in horror. Check it out. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Then, you may have seen in any of my weekend reading vlogs, I read Hope Street by Gayle, which was my in-person Chapter 25 book club that I host. Now, this is contemporary fiction. I haven't read anything by this author before, but I do know he has other books. He's a British author, I think. And in this story, we follow Connor, who lives... So we quickly learn that Connor probably has support needs, possibly neurodivergent. It is never fully confirmed, but he lives with his mum, who he relies on to kind of care for him. He does have a job, but he requires additional support. And he's a lovely, wholesome character. But you see, very early on, his mother, his only parent, and who is absolutely devoted to Connor, goes out one day and never returns. This is like 3 or 4 years on. And Hope Street, where he lives, is basically earmarked for demolition by the council so they can do new developments on it. And he's like, I can't leave this house, because what if my mum comes back? He's so convinced that his mum will return home. His mum, who would never willingly leave him. In amongst this, there's what's the other? Leela, yeah. She works as a journalist in the local newspaper. Her relationships just come to an end. She enjoys the community and people aspects of her local journalism. and she gets asked to go and meet and speak to Connor, who, who's refusing to leave the house of the council. So Connor then hopes that Leela can tell his story. Leela finds out that Connor has been waiting for his mum for years to come back, and really sees opportunity in this story to maybe try and help find her. And she kind of promises to do that somehow. There's another guy, I can't remember his name, who is it's basically Connor's mum's best friend's son. Anyway, he's always keeping an eye out for Connor. He goes round to take some dinner once a week, always checking in on him. He's a good guy, he's keeping his eyes peeled, just like to help support him. And there's also a couple of work friends that Connor has. Now, overall, so we watch this journey as Leela tries to help Connor find out more about where his mum is. We're exploring that relationship. There's maybe a couple other characters that take advantage of Connor. It deals with a lot of, quite heavy topics. Abandonment, if you believe that's what's happened. Grieving on the loss. The life of someone who requires more support and is perhaps neurodivergent. The feeling of hope is they're determined that their mum will return. Some unkind things that happen to him when he just is, puts a lot of faith in people. The journalism aspect, there was loads in this. Overall, in my book group, it got rated anywhere between 2 and 4.5 stars. So quite varied. So it came in on average 3.25. I gave it a solid 3 because I thought it was a really interesting read. I really enjoyed the characters. I think, if I remind myself, so we jumped from different POVs by each character between Connor and Leela, which was quite nice to read. And see if you're looking for something a little bit, albeit there are some challenging topics, it is a very hopeful, heartwarming book. So, yeah, the next one I'm reading, I've just started. I'll tell you about that in my weekend reading vlog. Now, the next one I picked up was a thriller by the author Hiya Abdullah. I think it's a more recent one, I think. It's called What Happens in the Dark. Now, in this one we have two sort of friends. Well, they were close friends growing up, Lily and Safa. Now, Lily is the nation's sort of well-known breakfast TV presenter, and her friend Safa was once a renowned journalist and has slightly fallen from grace. So when she sees opportunity for a story, Safa kind of grabs it and tries to rekindle her friendship with Lily, because rumours in the media start to appear that Lily is showing some bruises, hinting at some level of domestic violence. But, Safa, as she rekindles her friendship, hears from Lily that, no, there's nothing to worry about. Nothing's happened, they're just bruised easily. But you see, one night, the police end up at Lily's door. Lily is very calm, despite the fact she has a dead body at her feet. Now, is it Lily's husband or boyfriend? I can't remember if they're married or not. By the by, Lily pleads not guilty and says no more, and is currently awaiting trial. As with some of Hiya Abdullah's, I don't know if they're all because I haven't read them all. In this one, we have a strong courtroom drama, and Safa decides to investigate what really happened that night. And in true Hiya Abdullah style, there are twists you never see coming, and this got very twisty towards the end. I really enjoyed it. What I would say is it's still not, in my opinion, as good as Next of Kin by Hiya Abdullah. And I think the main reason for this is because I felt it was too long. I feel like thrillers shouldn't be over a certain length, because I'm like that with movies. I feel pretty much like most movies should just be 90 minutes. And, with thrillers, don't go over the 300-page mark, stick around there. I think it's different for epic stories or some of like like Imaginary Friend and other ones that are big chunk, like 800, 900 page books. I get that. But thrillers, no, this was 400 pages. And it really did not need to be that long. In saying that, the twists were great. So I think the length I felt like it just could have tightened it up a wee bit. But if you like the sound of the premise and have read and enjoyed Hiya Abdullah, check it out. If you've never read Hiya Abdullah, start with Next of Kin. Then I went for my third non-fiction of the month, and that was No More Tears, The Dark Secrets of Johnson & Johnson by Gardiner Harris. And wow, there is a lot to unpack in this book. When I was first reading it, I was like, oh, this is giving me feelings of the book Empire of Pain, which is about the Sackler family and the Sackler family, or dynasty we should say, and their primary role in the opioid epidemic. Now, that's a hard read. This in itself, because it's a bit sciencey at bits, I would say. So when I was listening to it in audio, I had to focus. Not that I don't focus, but some of the sciencey bits were a bit much for my brain. But that aside, I found this really interesting in that I didn't realise how effed up Johnson & Johnson are as an organisation. So not only were they involved in the opioid epidemic, they were involved in, and all of this stuff that I'm about to mention, they were aware of and tried their damnedest to keep it under wraps and for the public not to know. Asbestos and baby talc causing cancer. Issues with hip sort of joint replacements, metal on metal, Tylenol issues, opioid issues, drug testing in parts of the world where they shouldn't be allowed to do that, suppressing scientific research, especially around their baby powder brand, because even if baby powder wasn't their biggest seller, it's what they're most known for. And as a brand, if you're so known for baby powder, baby care, baby stuff, it gives an idea and a reflection of a brand that is caring and nurturing, and so they will go to any length to protect that brand, even if it isn't their biggest selling product, because the product itself has so much reputational kudos for them. Honestly, there is pretty much every drug that's had any issue that you can think of, or other products. Johnson & Johnson have been part of it, and it literally blew my mind. It was a captivating read, and it will make you very, very angry. And then, if you've maybe seen my reading vlog, I also attempted to read I did finish it, The Christmas Tree Farm by Laurie Gilmour. Me and you aren't meant to be together. Me and Laurie Gilmour are not supposed to be besties. And it's not that I hate you. It's just that you're not for me. Laurie likes to write Hallmark-esque stories. Now maybe we don't, but many of us like a Hallmark movie, and you take it as light and fluffy as it is, and the romance is all set up. It's probably also predominantly white and non-diverse in any shape or form. And maybe not in a Hallmark, but add in a bit of Jackie Collins, Jilly Cooper, or maybe 50 Shades. Then you've got this book, and I'm not going to lie, I had a feeling I wasn't going to like it. So caveat for that, because I don't do spice, and this is spicy, but not the spiciest of her books. I believe that might be the Pumpkin Spice Cafe and the Cinnamon Bun Bakery. This still has a level of spice if you like romance, which is set in a small town, and it's all twee and a wee bit not the best writing, and it's all cool, because hey, I'll read and watch horror movies and stuff like that aren't amazing, but I just love it for the fun factor, Anyway, and so loads of you might get this if you want festive feelings, with some saucy bits. Maybe this is it, because we fall in Kira, right? She hates Christmas. But she somehow accidentally finds herself buying a Christmas tree farm. Don't. She's heavily influenced by influencers who are like pickling stuff. But I think, anyway, and she's like, oh, I've got a Christmas tree farm. And then, like, one of the neighbours, her brother, comes to stay for a bit. And he's like a tech bro, but also like a really nice guy. And he's walking some dogs through her farm, and he helps her out. And she's like, oh, he's such a good guy, but not like in an attractive way. And then realizes, oh, actually, maybe he isn't. And they're like, oh, get it all on. And yeah, that's about it. It's just not for me. But 5 stars just for the cover, you know. But that book and that series has a lot of fans, and I don't knock you. I don't knock you. You do you. And that sounds sarcastic, but I don't mean it in a sarcastic way. I've got my wee pen here ticking off what I'm telling you about. The next I read was Nobody's Girls by Virginia Roberts Guiffre, and this is obviously one of the most well-known victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and it's her story. Her story of growing up, having a very abusive father, the sexual abuse and trauma that she experienced as a child and then growing up, and then her journey to what became her experience with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I know a lot about the case, Jeffrey Epstein Maxwell, because I've read books around it, watched documentaries, and obviously know about Virginia Roberts Guiffre. She's the kind of also the one photographed with Andrew Mountbatten, because he ain't no prince anymore. Anyway, so probably the most well-known, unfortunately, Jeffrey Epstein, Andrew victims, and her story is so well told. It's also quite poignant because she died by suicide in April, I think it was, of this year. And she's been fighting and fighting constantly in her life. I didn't realise how tragic and traumatic her life was before she even met Jeffrey Epstein. Albeit, I think one of the things we know a lot about Jeffrey Epstein's victims is him and Ghislaine Maxwell intentionally sought out vulnerable young girls. This is such a hard story to read, but a necessary story to read, and I think is a important case, and one that has not seen full justice yet. Her words should be heard. I listened to this on Audible, and I'd recommend it. It also, I think it's important that her words are heard now that she's no longer here to tell it as well. So it's a difficult read, but one I would highly recommend. Then, obviously I would say Nobody's Girl is up there as well, but one of my other top reads of the month was Itch by Gemma Amor. So this is folklore horror, I would say, but it's got a modern twist. So we follow, why can I never remember main characters' names? Josie, right? Josie is at rock bottom when we meet her in this story because she's not long out of hospital, and she was put into hospital by her, I don't think they were married, so I'll say girlfriend, at the time, who was very physically and emotionally abusive towards her, and put her in hospital. And so she's now got a restraining order on her girlfriend. She's back kind of staying with her dad, she's got a bit of a funny relationship with. She's back in her hometown. She's walking along in the woods and discovers like a dead body that is pretty already badly decomposed. She sees, she sees, creepy crawlies and a bit of an infestation because of the what you may call it, the thingy of the body. What's the word? I want to say the shape, but it's not. The state of the body of what it's in. So clearly this has been, they think, she assumes, a murder. And she's traumatised by the experience and is desperate to find out, how did this girl end up here? Who is she? So obviously the police turn up and they start looking into it. And in this village they have You know, it's quite a small town, and they have kind of folklore. I can't remember the name of an isolated town in the Forest of Dean, and I think they have like an annual festival as well, which is quite paganistic, and it's after this festival that the body is found. She starts to almost like you start to hear her talk or hear her or see her point of view of what feels like a bit of an emotional mental breakdown as she's dealing with this, and then she discovers another one, and then we're like, oh my god, is there a serial killer? So we have serial killer vibes, small town, we have actual and mental or visual fever dream type infestations, hence the itch. And there are times when I'm itching already. There are times when I was reading this and I was actually feeling itchy. There is domestic violence within a same-sex relationship, that her girlfriend turns up again later on, and you see that abuse. There's so much packed into this book. Really well written. I got to the end of it and I was like, I had to go for a run to decompress because it's covering so much. It even gave me like Wicker Man vibes because of the place that she stays. So I would highly recommend, if you love horror, if feminist rage, folklore, Wicker Man, serial killer, and some creepy crawlies all thrown in together, highly recommend. And then the last book of November was The Very Naughty List by Michael D. A. Clarke. He kindly gave me a copy of this book and book 2. Book 1 I think it's only 96 pages, and then I think book 2 is 200. I haven't read book 2 yet, but in book 1 we follow a shopping mall Santa, and he's been doing this. He gets so much joy from it. He loves bringing joy to kids this time of year, and he's there. And I think the girl that's working doing the kind of elf side gets like verbally abused by a couple of kids, and Santa stands up for her, right? But in true modern day, these kids are videoing it and seeing Santa getting raging, puts the video online, goes viral, crazy bad Santa. And so the shopping mall was like, we're gonna have to let you go. And he's like, but it wasn't me, I was just... Anyway, he's sacked and he's out for revenge, and he's about to get a bit stabby and seek revenge on those at the shopping mall, because the person that comes in to replace them is all about doing TikTok dances and, you know, being all viral and stuff like that. Anyway, it is a full-on festive, quirky slasher with a stabby Santa who is just taking everyone down with him on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I think it's Christmas Eve. And yeah, that's all I can say because there's only 96 pages. You'll fly through it. I don't know, I had it on Kindle. Yeah, I just checked. It's like $1.99 on Kindle if you're up for that. And I think, oh well, actually, you can get part 2. Just checked on Amazon there. And you get part 2 on Kindle for 99p. So I haven't read part 2, so I can't comment, but that was a fun little slasher, a decent 3 out of 5 star read. And so those were all the books I read in November. It was an okay month, some goodies and some middle of the roadies. I did DNF 4 books, so yeah. I DNF'd The Feminist Killjoy's Handbook, which had come recommended to me in a EDI event that I was at. And I may have to check it out again, but maybe in print, because I think the audiobook was my problem. But I'm not 100% sure. I was struggling to get into it, and normally this is absolutely my kind of read. I love a bit of feminist non-fiction, but no, I was struggling. So I packed that in after about 20%. Then I started to read The Maid's Secret, which I think is book 3 or 3.5 or whatever of the Nita Prose Molly the Maid series. And I loved the first one. The second one was decent, and then I didn't really love the Christmassy one at all. It was a bit too rom-commy for me. And this one, I don't know. I would say if you really, really love the series, definitely read it. I think for me, I've just maybe had enough. I'm not a big series completer either. So, you know, bear that in mind. And I was just like, nah. I do love Molly Maid, and there was more about her gran in this one, which was nice, which I thought would keep me gripped, but it didn't. probably says more about me and my current reading tastes, maybe. Then I DNF'd my OG book group read pick, which was Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. So I struggle with classics generally, like classics that are written like classics. And I've never read a Virginia Woolf. I was really up for it. I would actually, having had the discussion this month about it, I would actually love to read a book just learning more about Virginia Woolf herself as an author and a women author in that time. And obviously I'm aware of the impact she had in the literary world, but I would like to read more about her as opposed to, I'm not sure. I mean, I would maybe give one more Virginia Woolf book a go, but I don't think it's really my bag. It felt like a stream of consciousness. I didn't really, there's so many characters. I did not enjoy the writing style, so I was really struggling. I was like, normally if it's a book group book, I will persevere, but it's not even that long. It's like 200 pages, and I was like, nah. I think I maybe got 70% in, and I was just like, nah, I'm not even sure what's going on. So, but the conversation was good. And then the last one I DNF'd, which was just before the end of November, was 12 Ways to Kill Your Family This Christmas. I loved the idea of it. For no particular reason. And, you know, I do like to get into seasonal reads. And again, this one I was reading on audio. And I don't know if it's just my brain at the point in time. I found myself not really following the story very well. I found myself, you know, like disassociating from the story and then realising, oh, I don't know what's going on. And I had no desire to like, all right, go back and start, you know, re-listen to that bit, focus what's going on. And no, I gave up on it. So yeah, 4 DNFs in 1 month's quite a lot for me. But do you know, the older I get, the more I'm like, life is too short to read books I'm not enjoying, unless people's whose opinion I really appreciate go give it another go or persevere. I promise you'll love it. That is the only instance that I'll not DNF. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what December holds. And this is the first day in December. I'm going into December reading. What's the name of the book? I think it's this. I couldn't remember because I've only just started listening to it on my phone and I'm recording on my phone. It's called A Serial Killer's Daughter, My Story of Faith, Love and Overcoming by Kerry Rawson, who is the daughter of... Now, I don't know much about this serial killer. I've heard the acronym before, but it's the BTK killer. Bind, torture, kill. I had to double check because I've literally already started reading it. And that was a serial killer in America who I actually don't know that much about, but I'm learning about through his daughter's story at this moment in time. Very early days, so I'll let you know. And I've started my chapter 25 book club, which is Medea by Rosie Hewlett, which is kind of Greek mythology. Medea is the niece of Circe, and the daughter of, I can't remember, her dad's like a king of some kingdom and has a lot of power, and she has a brother who's a bit of a dick, and her dad doesn't like her having any sort of magical sorcery powers until he is being asked to look after the golden fleece for the gods. And then he's like, maybe I could use Medea's magic to protect that, because to protect that there's loads of power coming to me. So, but prior to that, Medea has spent time with her Aunt Circe, being shown how to harness her magic. I'm really enjoying the writing style, so apart from barely being able to like pronounce half the characters' names, I'm just like, listen to audio. Audio is a really great way for knowing how to pronounce people's names, but especially this, my head just skims over it, so I know the character. But anyway, what I am liking is just how easy the storytelling is when it's a kind of genre. It's kind of, I suppose, fancy Greek mythology that I'm not into, and I'm already quite engaged, I have to say. So those are the books I'm reading currently. Let me know if you've had any top reads or how you got on in your November reading and what you've just started reading. And I'll be back with another bookish video very, very soon. Cheerio!